Members were to file item 68. That's Senate Bill 249. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 249 by Senator Hueso, an act relating to vehicles.
Mr. Alejo.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. SB 249 authorizes the DMV to enter into an MOU with the federal government for the purposes of issuing an enhanced driver's license, or EDL. The California's ports of entry are a gateway to commerce as employees cross the border to go to work, consumers cross to shop, and business people cross to attend meetings and manage their businesses located on both sides of the border. But each year, 45 million passenger vehicles and 15 million pedestrians cross the border into California through 6 land ports of entry. This delay creates an economic loss for California in an amount of $3.9 billion, 3 million potential working hours, and 43,000 jobs. There's an urgent economic need to responsibly expedite the movement of people across the California-Mexico border. And this bill would remedy the situation by decreasing border wait times and restoring billions of dollars in gross output and 51,000 jobs in the San Diego-Tijuana area alone. This bill is a Latino caucus priority bill. I respectfully ask for an aye vote on this bill and also an immediate transmittal to the Senate.
Thank you, Mr. Alejo. Seeing no discussion on the item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 62, noes 2. Measure passes with immediate transmittal to the Senate. Members were to file item 69, Senate Bill 327. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 327 by Senator Hernandez and others, an act relating to private employment, declaring the urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
Mr. Lowe, you may open.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker and members, for allowing me to present Senate Bill 327. The bill clarifies the existing law and reaffirms the legislature's intent to allow the Industrial Welfare Commission to adopt or amend working condition orders for any worker in California consistent with the health and welfare of those workers. This passed out of Labor Committee with unanimous support. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Lowe. Seeing no discussion on the item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 61, no 0 on the urgency. Ayes 61, no 0 on the bill. Measure passes. File item 70, SB 36. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 36 by Senator Hernandez and others, an act relating to Medi-Cal, declaring the urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
Mr. Bonta, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. SB 36 bridges the gap between the current Medicaid Section 1115 waiver and the new waiver, which is still being negotiated with the federal government. The bill does two things. First, it allows the Department of Health Care Services to request one or more temporary waiver extensions. Second, it requires the department to extend the existing hospital payment methodologies under the current waiver. The reason for the bill is the current waiver expires October 31st, 2015, and a new waiver agreement has not been reached between the state and the federal government. At this late point in the session, it is unlikely that an agreement will be reached before we adjourn. An extension of the current hospital financing methodologies would continue to provide essential funding for safety net hospitals in the event of a delay in completion of the next waiver and until state hospital financing law is amended to determine the new waiver-related hospital funding provisions resulting from the next waiver. This is an important bill, members. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Bonta. Seeing no discussion on the item, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 61, no 0 on the urgency. Ayes 61, no 0 on the bill. Measure passes. Members, we are moving back to file item 66. That's Senate Bill 406. Clerk will read.
Senate Bill 406 by Senator Jackson and others, and act relating to employment.
Mr. Gomez, you may open.
Mr. Speaker and members, I'd like to present Senate Bill 406, which would update the California Family Rights Act to reflect the present-day caregiving realities of today's workforce and today's families. SB 406 extends the definition of family members to allow workers to care for seriously ill adult children, siblings, grandparents, grandchildren, and parent-in-laws. California has the second highest percentage of multi-generational households in the country. Currently, the California Family Rights Act allows eligible employees to take job-protected, unpaid leave to care for themselves, an immediate family member, or bond with a new child. CFRA has strict eligibility requirement. It only covers those who have worked for more than 25 hours per week for a full year or more at a company with 50 or more employees. And the definition of family has been limited. The leave also has to be taken for a qualifying life event and certified by a physician. This brings CFRA in greater alignment. This bill brings CFRA in greater alignment with the paid family leave insurance program, which was expanded in 2013. The author has removed the provision that would change the employer size threshold, significantly narrowing the scope of the bill. This bill will have absolutely no impact on businesses with 50 or fewer employees. Many of us have not had to risk losing our job to care for a loved one with a serious illness, but life does happen. When I was 7 years old and I didn't have health insurance, I ended up in the hospital for 7 days with pneumonia. And my parents were working 4 or 5 jobs a week to make ends meet at that time. And what they would do is one would come during the day where they could, and the other one would take over for the night shift. And they did this for over a week. But sooner or later, one of them had to lose a job and actually had to take too much time off, where we almost not only cost us our house because we couldn't make our mortgage payment, but also put a great strain on my siblings. This bill is to make sure that we value families, and we make sure that we value the current structure of families. This bill is in the Legislative Women's Caucus Stronger California package, and I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Gomez. Mr. Harper, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. This bill goes way beyond the reasonable definitions of previous and current law. This is going to be a significant impact on businesses throughout the state of California in a negative way, and I strongly urge a no vote on this bill.
Dr. Weber. Dr. Weber,
yes,
you are
Mr.
recognized.
Speaker and members, I rise in support of SB 406. This bill really just basically expands the definition, as it is already with paid leave, for what a family truly is. And I think in reality, if we actually reflect back on most of our own experiences, we have families now, not only in the past but currently, that are not necessarily just the mother and the father and the child, but often the grandparents are involved in the caring of children, raising of children, the aunts, the uncles, all of those things. When I was on the school board, one of the realities we came to deal with was that children were being parented by a host of individuals. And unfortunately, because of the social conditions in our society and the things that folks met, there were grandparents who actually were very active, and you probably have in your own community active grandparent groups where now grandparents who are still working are taking care of their children, their grandchildren, and having to be active parents and having to give the care that's necessary for those children to be successful. We recognize that. We recognize it in our foster care system, that the best care for sometimes a child is not with the parents, but with the grandparents and the aunts and the uncles who may be there. This really updates our reality. It provides the kind of support that's essential and really recognizes the fact that families are extended. I think most of us here have very extensive extended families that have been integral in helping and to support it. This would simply do this. This is an unpaid leave. And so as a result of that, people have earned it because of their work conditions and how long they've worked. And we need to be in a position to really live up to what we believe, that families are critical and central to the rearing of children and families, and that being able to provide that level of extended care is important and should be extended to the extended members of the family. I respectfully ask for your support of SB 406.
Mr. Wagner, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Briefly, I'm going to rise in opposition. Both the floor manager and our friend from San Diego just stated quite accurately this is a relatively small bill. It just is a small expansion of what we've done before. And therein lies the nub of the problem. We start with a good idea, and we always expand it. And we expand it a little bit more, and we just make another small tweak to expand it. For example, paid sick leave. Well, at one point we had unpaid sick leave, and then it was paid sick leave. And then we had a bill last year that mandated it for not just 50 employers, but even less than that. And we had what we're calling kin care, applicable to all employers, and allows employees to use half of paid time off for family members. We start with a good idea and we expand it. Some of us, quite frankly, warned about precisely that thing in a completely different context with the assisted suicide bill. We always just take the next step and the next step and then the step after that, and that's where you get businesses fleeing California. That's where you get rules and regulations that are job killers, like the Chamber has said this bill is. Several steps ago, the policy might well have been very good, very supportable, very compassionate, but we always take those next couple of steps. It's time to say stop. It's time to give our employers breathing room so that they can grow themselves and provide the further jobs and the further opportunities that at the end of the day don't benefit the employers, but actually benefit the employees by giving them good, productive jobs. That's what we need to do, not these kinds of further steps, more job killer legislation. I urge a no vote.
Mr. Thurman, you are recognized.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. I rise in support of SB 406. We often talk about the importance of family and the work that we do here and the importance of protecting and supporting California families. This is an opportunity for us to simply put our money where our mouth is. Expansion doesn't always have to be a bad thing. When there's rationale to support that expansion, then you should do it. This bill benefits families. This bill will benefit the employers who are willing to have employees who know that their employer cares enough about them to support them and to ensure that there's a job waiting for them when they come back. And if you've ever been in a position where you've had to care for a sibling, like I have, who had a terminal illness, and to know that you'd have an employer who would have your back and support you, you'd work as hard as you could for that employer. We do expansion because our families have broader definitions of what constitutes a family than what might have been at the time that the laws were first written. And that's why we do expansion. Colleagues, I submit to you, this is more than a good bill. This is good for families, and this is good for employers, and this is good for the state of California. I urge your yes vote.
Thank you, Mr. Thurman. Ms. Gonzalez, you are recognized.
I rise in passionate support of this bill, and I first want to clarify what my colleague from Orange County said. Misstated basically the state of law in California. We never have had unpaid sick leave. And in fact, until last year, 6.5 million Californians never even had the opportunity to stay home sick and not lose their job, but for this legislature. When this bill was originally written, and let's remember this is unpaid leave, it is the right to keep your job if you have to go take care of a family member. When it was originally written, our families might have looked different. And you know, the other side of the aisle often wants to talk about family values. In my community, family values often means it's not the traditional family. I am a single mom. If my child was sick, I have to continue to work to pay the bills, but my parents have always been there. Because we have to rely on grandparents or siblings, should that be excluded? Or should that be celebrated, the fact that we actually are relying on our own families, and that after that reliance, that family member will not lose their job? This is a natural progression of this law. It is not an expansion that will cost employers more. It makes sense. If you are pro-family, there is no way you can vote against this law. I ask for your aye vote.
All debate having ceased on the item, Mr. Gomez, you may close.
This is a bill that reflects the changing structure of our family. You know, we are our brothers and sisters' keepers, literally. If we have a sibling that gets sick, we should feel some responsibility to want to go and take care of them. If we have a grandparent who gets sick, we should have that responsibility to want to go and take care of them. Because that's where our values start, right? With our family and how we act with our family. It doesn't say you have to take the time off. It just says that your job will be protective if you do take the time off. So this is a bill that's very modest expansion. And I love this idea of that we take a good idea and we expand it too much over and over again. You know what? I'm proud of that. We've done that throughout the history of the United States. We've done that with voting rights, civil rights, women's rights, expanding health care, making sure people get a day off. You know, we've done this over and over again. So I'm proud that we expand the opportunities people have in life, because that's what we do here in the United States of America. We provide people with greater and greater opportunities to eliminate the disparities that individuals from different backgrounds face. So this is just, yes, another step, but it's in a long step that has been continued for generations. I ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Gomez. With that, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. 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 Mr. Gomez. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote who 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 desire to vote. Mr. Gomez. All members vote or desire to vote. All members vote or desire to vote. Mr. Gomez. Mr. Holden moves a call. Members, we are moving to the concurrence file.
Now you know what I go through.
Members, ever so briefly, back to motions and resolutions. Pursuant to Assembly Rule 77.2, I am re-referring AB 802 to the Utilities and Commerce Committee. Also pursuant to AR 77.2, re-referring file item number 4, SB 548, to the Human Services Committee. Members, we are at the concurrence file. We're passing temporarily on file item 6. We are moving to file item number 7. That's AB 387. Concur. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 387 by Assemblymember McCarty, an act relating to insurance.
Mr. McCarty, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. This bill's back from the Senate on concurrence with amendments. Essentially, this bill is a negotiated settlement between the Department of Insurance and the insurance industry. Unanimous votes, both houses. Ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. McCarty. Seeing no discussion on the item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 57, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. File item number 8 is AB 786. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 786 by Assemblymember Levine, an act relating to common sense developments and declaring the urgency thereof to take effect immediately.
Mr. Levine, you may open.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker and members. AB 786 will close a loophole in existing law that allows an HOA to fine homeowners who allow their lawns to turn brown. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Mr. Levine. Seeing no discussion on the item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 60, no 0 on the urgency. Ayes 60, no 0 on the measure. Senate amendments are concurred in. Members, we're at file item number 10, ACR 15. Clerk will read.
Assembly Concurrent Resolution 15 by Assemblymember Levine and others relative to California Holocaust Memorial Week.
Mr. Levine.
I respectfully ask for concurrence in Senate amendments.
Seeing no discussion on the item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 62, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in. We are going to pass temporarily on file items 11 and 12. We are moving to file item 13. That's AB 194 by Mr. Frazier. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 194 by Assemblymember Frazier and others, an act relating to transportation and making an appropriation therefore.
Mr. Frazier, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, amendments taken in the Senate are largely the result of extensive negotiations with the administration. The amendments clarify roles and responsibilities between Caltrans and regional transportation agencies. And they define criteria for the California Transportation Commission to use when it evaluates applications for toll facilities. I ask for your aye vote on concurrence.
Thank you very much, Mr. Frazier. Seeing no discussion on the item, I'm sorry, Mr. Harper, you are recognized.
Thank you very much, Mr. Speaker. This is an item of great concern to me and my district. And it should be for all districts, because the reality is we see a posture from this administration to try to convert lanes, toll lanes on freeways throughout the state of California. What this does is essentially fast tracks toll lanes on freeways, whether they be in Southern California, the Bay Area, Central Valley, San Diego, etc. In fact, I listened earlier this week when I heard from the rear of the chamber on the condition of the House about how we should be concerned about forfeiting our duties as legislators to a bureaucratic body. And that's exactly what this bill does, is that rather than having these decisions be made on individual state routes by our state legislature, this House, instead this bill would forfeit that and give that over to the California Transportation Commission. Let us respect the other members of this House. Let us recognize our duties as legislators. Let us examine each of these on a case-by-case basis, and I ask everybody to please vote no on this bill.
Thank you, Ms. Harper. Seeing no additional comment, Mr. Frazier, you may close.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, this is a good thing for congestion management tools in the state of California. I urge your aye vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Frazier. With that, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. The clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 46, no 17. Senate amendments are concurred in. Members, we're at file item 14. That's AB 179 by Ms. Bonilla. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 179 by Assemblymember Bonilla and others, and Accolade in the Healing Arts.
Ms. Bonilla, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker and members. AB 179 is back on concurrence. It's the Sunset Extension Bill for the Dental Board and the Board of Vocational Nursing and Psychiatric Technicians, and addresses other sunset review-related issues. The Senate amendments allow the Dental Board to suspend the dental assistant practical exam based upon review and analysis of the exam. It will require the Director of the Department of Consumer Affairs to appoint to the board an administrative and enforcement program monitor, and finally requires DCA's internal audit unit to review the board's finances. I respectfully ask for your aye vote.
Thank you, Ms. Bonilla. Seeing no members, let's maintain decorum in the chamber. Seeing no discussion on the item, clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll, tally the vote. Ayes 58, noes 8. Senate amendments are concurred in. Members, we are moving back to file item number 9 by Mr. Stone. My apologies, Mr. Stone, for the delay. Clerk will read.
Assembly Bill 403 by Assemblymember Mark Stone and others, and Accolade in the Public Social Services.
Mr. Stone, you may open.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Members, AB 403 has changed quite a bit since you voted on it last time off of the Assembly floor, and that was part of the plan, the negotiations with the stakeholders, negotiations with the Department of Social Services, and everyone. This bill represents the single largest significant change in the child welfare system in decades. It is something that has been a long time in the making and will change the continuum of care specifically aimed at better outcomes for kids in the child welfare system. The amendments taken in the Senate are really about implementation, about enhancing the ability to recruit and retain foster homes, because what this bill does is move the care away from congregate care, group homes, and into more individualized care. Members, this is a significant step for the health of our communities. This is a significant step for the benefit of our foster kids, who we all are charged with their care. It is a great bill that I hope you all will take a look at. We will be attending to it over the next few years as implementation issues arise. We're continuing to work with all of the stakeholders to make sure that the experience for foster kids is the best we can, and we have the resources available for them so that they can live their lives in the healthiest way possible. And I respectfully request your aye votes.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. Seeing no discussion or debate on the item, the clerk will open the roll. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. All members vote who desire to vote. Clerk will close the roll. Tally the vote. Ayes 64, no 0. Senate amendments are concurred in.